we rely on to assess risk coming from structured data, and how much coming from unstructured data. Most of the unstructured data and information have been difficult to capture and analyze. And this is where artificial intelligence, and especially natural language processing, NLP, are changing the landscape. So before starting our rich discussions today, I would like to introduce, or I would like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves very briefly. Thank you. Mrs. Mina, please.
Good morning. My name is Mina Sahib. I am not an actuary. That's my disclaimer for the session. But I have a deep respect for what you do. And I have been working in the insurance industry for almost 16 years, started in Canada with State Farm Insurance, moved to the region, and have been working with local insurers, mainly on the operational side, digital transformation. I've worked with a couple of vendors in the market, and in the last couple of years, I moved into consulting. So now I am an implementation consultant in the region.
Okay. Hello, I'm Manny. I've been in the region for about, I keep saying a year and a half. But I've been working with clients in the region for a while, and I head up our data science consulting practice at WTW. So lots of experience using NLP to solve different problems within the industry.
Hello, I'm Rudi Dakash. I'm an actuary and I have a PhD in risk management and actuarial science. I have been dealing with risk analytics, actuarial modeling for more than 15 years, of course in the region. My primary focus on the reinsurance optimization and the risk modeling for state capital.
Thank you. So, Dr. Rudi, my question is, we often hear about AI as a tool for automation and efficiency. We would like to hear now in your presentation, from your perspective, are we simply improving existing actuarial and insurance processes, or NLP is transforming how we understand, measure, and manage risk? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. How to benefit from the AI, what is NLP, what is LLM, how we to use it within actuarial and insurance aspects. We start by the first slide, please. The next one. By the distinction between two key components of the artificial intelligence. We have the NLP, what we call natural language processing, and LLM, the large language models. What's the difference between the two? The NLP, the main objective of the NLP is to transfer your unstructured data into structured data. NLP, it has been used for more 30 years or 40 years in industry. NLP, it's not something new. Why? The NLP was implemented into the antiviruses, let's say, or to capture spam emails, etc. How it works, it detects key components from a specific file and transfer your unstructured data into structured data. Today, the NLP is integrated to use the OCR, you have handwritten text notes, etc., and transfer your data fields, your unstructured data into structured data. So the NLP, it is the phase one of the AI. When using ChatGPT, OpenAI, Gemini, all the engines. When you text, you request your inquiry, it starts with the NLP to understand under which corridor or which library to be loaded to run the LLM. The LLM it is, let's say, the most of the developments, it happens on the LLM sides. Why? Because the LLM sides, it is, from technical point of view, it is the AI models. How it works, it opens several libraries on your inquiries, and it starts from probabilistic point of view to understand what is your target output, and accordingly it runs the process. So that's in a nutshell the difference between NLP and LLM. Use maybe notebook LLM of Google. You can use integrate Power Automate with Copilot. You can use Python and so on. How the integration should be done? You have first a data pool. This data pool, it contains Word documents, PDF, handwritten notes, risk assessment surveys, etc. So you have your data pool, then you have to build your NLP engine just to transfer your unstructured data into structured data and combine both of them together. Then we move into the LLM, the AI. Then you have a proper data or a structured data with a proper prompt. You put it into the LLM, then you will get your output. All of them, you can, if you want to develop a chatbot, you have to create a proxy AI employee within your department. All of them, it should work in this area, and it agrees around 90% in terms what can be automated or it needs some of interpretation and so on. It enhances the speed of the operations by 90%. We move to the next. We move to the next slide. Just as an example, for the medical data processing. For the medical data processing, Mr. Mani will talk more about practical examples, but just in a nutshell, the medical underwriting process, it reduced the review for each file from 45 minutes to 3 minutes. And there is a 94% accuracy compared to when a judgment being done by a doctor. So this has been tested. So that's an example how to apply it for the medical data. And taking another example about the property risk assessments. Let's say, for example, for the NatCat modeling. If we can do, for example, NatCat modeling, you can rely on pure production data, or you can integrate this model with the surveys and the risk assessments for each property, number of floors, what is the characteristic of the building, what is the assessment conducted by the engineer on the floor, etc. You can put all of them to transfer all your unstructured data into structured data and put it in your automated engine. So within 3 minutes, you can transfer 100 property files, unstructured data into structured data. Then you move into your engine and into your modeling aspects. Thank you.
Now our panelist Mani, in order to delve more into the practical side of this interesting topic. The floor is yours, Mani.
Build upon Rudy's presentation and talk a little bit more about some of the practical examples that we've seen. But what I thought I'd do very briefly is introduce myself a little bit more, because what you might want to know is, why should we listen to this random guy on the stage, right? So a little bit of an introduction to me. I head up a data science consulting team at WTW, and we do a range of activities ranging from strategic advice around best practices in embedding data science within an insurance company, how they should integrate or interact with actuarial teams, with claims teams, with underwriters, because What I've seen a lot of, what I'm sure we've all seen as well, is a lot of times what can happen is the data science team comes in and they struggle to have the impact within the industry or within the company that they might want to have, because they can't speak the same language as the actuaries, or they don't understand, where the business impact will be for the models that they're building. But we also do a lot of actual implementation as well. So that is bringing in some data scientists, working with technology consulting, working with the actuaries to actually build the models, implement it, and deliver the business value that data science can sort of provide. And as you can imagine, a lot of the times, the reason we're using data science is for the NLP advantages, the advantages of using unstructured data, the advantages of freeing some of the data that you have to get insights. And I'll show a little bit about how that can work. Just some examples of some of the projects that we've worked on that I think really showcase the value of using NLP. So within the claim space, there's a lot of optimization that can be done to reduce the indemnity spend. So that's the biggest cost, obviously, within an insurance company. So how do you bring that down? And by building different models, we can save a lot of money, basically, for your companies. An example was an insurance company. We built a few different models, a few different use cases, and they got, hopefully, I wish we shared some of that benefit that they got, but we got a fair bit of benefit from there. And there's lots of different examples there. But what I wanted to do, there we go, is give an example of when we've used NLP within an insurance company to help them identify and fix an issue, because they didn't really understand why something was happening, and we used NLP and unstructured data to get to the answer. So what they were seeing was their retention rate was dropping monthly, but they didn't know why. So all they saw was it started at 75%, the next month it was 73%, then it was 70%, 69, 65, and they couldn't understand why, because everything looked fine. At an overall portfolio level, everything looked fine. So we did a lot of analysis, and one of the things we did was take the unstructured data from call centers. So we've got transcripts of all the different conversations that were had within the call centers, and basically trying to understand why were people canceling, why were they not renewing. And so what we did was used an LLM, and this was before ChatGPT. We used an LLM to basically score all the different transcripts to get vectors for each of the transcripts, and then we could cluster them. So we could say which of the calls had a similar topic. And we came up with 29 different topics and the different key phrases that people were talking about. And what this highlighted was a specific issue that only affected a very small segment of customers, but their retention rate had dropped from, the expected 70, 80% to 20. And the reason it had dropped was because they were trying to renew, and they were calling and saying, I'm trying to renew, but my card details aren't going through. Like, you're not taking my money. So it was a very big issue. And it like I said, it only affected a specific segment of customers. But the reason we were able to identify it was by using this NLP. It gave us an extra dimension to look at the data that we have already. It helped us understand something that we didn't know about the customers already. That was all I wanted to really talk about and give an example of using NLP in that way. But I think it's a nice way. Everyone always talks about the unstructured data from documents and using that to do risk assessment and coming up with a quote. And I think that's a very, very powerful example, don't get me wrong. But another example, I think, is more portfolio analysis and understanding what's going on in a large batch of data, and can we get some extra features, some extra information that we might not have in structured data from the unstructured data, like transcripts, like policy wordings for all the different customers and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mani, for this interesting presentation, for the energy on the floor. Mina, we are keen now to hear your perspective and your opinion about this topic. So after hearing now the advantages of the AI and specifically of NLP, In your opinion, how do businesses ensure they are selecting the right AIE solutions to meet their business requirements?
Perspective on understanding NLP. I wanted to first say that, I think my experience in the industry has been that you get two camps that respond to the term AI, right? You get the camp that are super excited and want to sign up and just want to know what AI can do for their business. And then you get the other camp that freeze and they begin to think of robots, and they literally, that's the first image that comes to their head. And I think, that might have even been intentional by a lot of the AI industry, right? Is it produces this image of a robot, essentially. So in terms of understanding the impact of AI in the business, but I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again? The first factor here is the business needs to understand what is the problem that they're trying to resolve. And I don't say that lightheartedly, because believe it or not, a lot of businesses are going to solution providers with an idea on acceleration. Sometimes it's the CEO level, the executive level, that may not really understand what technology can really do to impact their business. And then you're cascaded, the solution, the vendors are then cascaded into the business heads. And the business heads have a better idea of the pain point. But when you are on a senior executive level, you might see things much more on a bird's eye view or more on a vertical perspective. Being this is an actuarial conference, I think it's really key for actuaries to start being on the table on a lot of digital projects. And the reason being, because you as an actuary, and we see this in Rudy and Mani's presentations, that you have a much more macro level view of the business and the impact, what should be the primary benefit of AI implementation, which is going to be the real data insights that will come to you as a business to then impact your analytics as an actuary. But the verticals in your company will just see things from a bird's eye view. So the vertical heads, be it your chief of underwriting, your chief of claims, your chief of distribution, they're really looking to impact their operation only, right? And technologists understand that AI, what will end up being the long-term ROI for the business, will be on data insights. So the first step I think is really important, is to bring key stakeholders to the table. Now, how do you understand who those key stakeholders are? You bring everyone to the table. There's a problem in underwriting, there's a problem in claims. You have a discovery workshop of some sort to first define what is the problem and where will it impact in the business. Once you've defined the problem, then you can kind of take step forwards to get out there and understand who are the vendors that are then providing solutions. And I would say that it's important also for the insurance businesses not to get into the solutioning. Let the technologists do the solutioning. That's their expertise. So you come to them with the problem, they will then come to you with the solution. And we saw this yesterday. There was a panel, a really fantastic panel with 2 startup founders. I think one of them comes from the industry, but one of them was an engineer at an Abu Dhabi fair, actually. And when the CrowdStrike event happened a couple of years ago, and he saw the disruption that happened around the world, he kind of was inspired to produce a product that could protect businesses in the case of that kind of interruption. So, so let the technologists come to you with the solution, and you present to them the problem. And during those discovery sessions with the vendor, you will also then come to a conclusion of where you can then expand the solution as well. And just a final point to this question as well is vendors want to sell, right? You come to them with a problem, they're going, they might not have that solution ready, and they'll say, yeah, we can do that, right? And they could. You know, they have fantastic development teams, they have brilliant engineers, and they probably could, but when? And do they have a proof of concept? Well, POC, a proof of concept, should really become a proof of value. So one of the things I say to insurance businesses, or myself when I'm reviewing a lot of these solutions, is don't give me a sales pitch. I don't want to see a PowerPoint pitch. Come to me with your demonstration. Show me what your system can actually do. Come to me with case studies. Come to me with examples, and showcase to me exactly what your solution is promising to do. And further to that, you could also even ask that vendor to then provide you a proof of value where you implement and pilot a small item from their suite in your business for 4 weeks to see how it actually works. And that's honestly, I think, so some ways, there's many answers to these questions, but some steps you can take to try and find the right AI solution for your business.
Great. Thank
Sorry, it's a long answer.
Thank you. No, it's very insightful and detailed, yes. So you've just said, Mina, that we have to collaborate with various stakeholders, and this is extremely true. This is why my question to you, Rudy, one of the most important players in our industry is the regulator. So in your opinion, how can an LP be integrated into the actuarial workflow by respecting the regulatory rules and explainability?
Of course, one of the main stakeholders are the regulators, as you have mentioned. And as Mina mentioned about the governance and the strategic aspects. When the regulators will come to check the actuarial work, we'll focus on two primary criteria. The first criteria, how to protect the customer. Two, how to protect the stakeholders and to protect the industry. So, how to protect the customers, we start by how you are handling the data. Here comes to the data protection laws. You are putting the data on ChatGPT, OpenAI, just on open source environments. It's a big question to be answered by the actuary if using AI, how he's protecting the data of the customer. That's one. Two, how you are dealing with fair pricing with your customers. If you are using AI, how much your AI output is accurate and how much it is stable. Rerunning the same model after 3 months, you will get the same results. And of course, most of us has observed that sometimes the same prompt providing different answers sometimes in the AI. How much your model is stable, that's related to the customer and the fair dealing. When it comes to the regulatory framework, let's say solvency, reserving, etc., here's as well the same question: how you are using your AI, how much your model is stable, etc. So, in order to address this, you should have model risk management framework. Your model risk management framework, there is a framework to be implemented. That, for example, Moody's has used a model risk management framework for the credit risk. We should have a broader risk framework for the actuarial modeling. And there are several tests to be implemented, and as well related to the data protection, we have to consult the technical team and to consult the transformation, the subject matter experts in the transformation projects, how to create this safe environments. I mean, not under the technicalities, but this is how the strategy to be implemented in order to match the constraints set by the regulators.
Great, thank you, Rudy. So in this context, Mani, I would like to hear from you some key points to the success of such projects. What makes AI project successful, in your opinion?
Lots of luck. No, I'm joking. So I think a lot of the difficulty around AI implementation isn't the actual modeling. I think that's easy. Creating a solution is very easy, within reason. I don't want to downplay the work that we all do. But I think one of the hardest bits is bringing the business along with you on that journey. So it's so many times we walk into a pricing team, for example, and we say, we can help use machine learning, AI, whatever, to help improve the predictiveness of your models or improve the processes that you have. And a lot are open to exploring, understanding what's possible, but others are like, we're doing okay, profitability is pretty good. Why do I need to change? Why do I need to spend all this time doing this when I can just continue as I am now? So I think, and that's not, I don't want to diss pricing teams, it's across the industry, it's everywhere, just in different teams. So you might go to a claims team or an underwriting team and say, we can help you use AI to ingest documents. And they'll say, yeah, but I don't trust it. It's not accurate all of the time. And I'm sure that, and I love underwriters, but I'm sure they do make mistakes when looking at documents and reading the information in as well. So I think a lot of it is around winning the hearts and minds of the people that are actually going to be using the solution. But I think that also, it's our fault, my fault, because what can also happen on the other side is a data scientist or an actuary or whoever will come and say, we will solve your problem. Don't worry. I'm not going to ask you what your problem is, but we're going to solve it. We're going to come in and build a model and it's going to be amazing. So I think it's both sides not really talking with each other and understanding what actually needs to be done to make this a success. And it actually touches back to what Mina said earlier, which is sometimes the business side will say, I have this problem, here's a solution, and then just ask someone to build it. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think there's another way, which is they'll come and say, I have a solution, let's go and find a problem. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it as well. So I think it's just communication, understanding how to actually tackle the problem at hand.
Great, thanks, Mani. Mina, new, fastly evolving AI environment, how can we ensure that the AI technology is adding quantifiable value to our business?
Yeah, so on the topic of vendors and trying to sell their solutions, right? And they deserve that support, for genuine startups or genuine insurtechs that are really coming to you with, and many of them are actually from the business and from the industry. It's worth looking at what they're coming to you with. But as a business, you want to get returns on the investment of technologies that you're bringing into the business. Now, with AI, there are going to be phased out returns, right? So there may be returns you'll get in terms of value in the first 4 to 6 weeks. There may be returns you'll get within 4 to 6 months. The real return, the average return actually on AI implementations is going to be seen only after 14 to 18 months. And the reason for that is because, well, there's multiple reasons for that, but as you implement AI models only get better. More data the more data you have ingested into your AI training models, the better the output will be. I was working with a client, and they had requested a damage assessment tool for their motor business. So I reached out to the market, I reached out to a couple of vendors that I knew had solutions like that, and they came in. I know that one of the vendors came, so this goes back to the conversation I was having a little earlier about asking for them to demonstrate their tool. 3 vendors, all very, good names and good reputations in the market. One of them came, no demonstration. Literally could not show us anything. I shut it down in 5 minutes. The second vendor came, showcased the tool, and said, and it had good functionality. We could see that. He had run a couple of, we told him to run a couple of vehicles on it. We could see the functionality, but we could tell that he didn't have enough data in his model to produce different material, because some members of the team started sending him over pictures of cars to see. So we would identify the damage location, but it wasn't giving more information. The third vendor, however, not only identified the damaged areas to the vehicle, but it also gave us further insight into the damage. So for example, repair versus replaceability, right? So these are rules that they have built behind these engines to now tell you, is this based on market practice? Is this repairable? Is this replaceable? It was also able to give us timeframes of the damages, right? Which is important when you're trying to identify fraud. So some damages were, for example, identified as under 2 months, right? And some of them were identified as 6 to 12 months. So we knew what areas of the damages, if there was a previous dent in the car, the aging of it as well, and so forth. So we understood that that third vendor had clearly not only ingested more data into their tool, but had also really had a more long-sighted understanding of the kind of value they were going to give to us as a business, right? To my client as a business. So in terms of quantitative value, these returns, so this is about managing the expectation of the business when you're implementing a tool. I have to say something very important. You will not get the maximum returns on your AI implementation if you do not have a data strategy in your business. If you do not have a data strategy, a data governance framework for your business, you will not be able to maximize. You will be able to get some returns on AI implementation, but to maximize those returns will be very difficult. And really, in this day, guys, we are a data-driven industry. We do not sell tomatoes and pizza. We sell products that are based on data. We adjudicate claims based on data. You are actuaries. You are the artisans of data in our industry. So if we do not have data strategies, and I say this because I have seen this, unfortunately, in the market, in the region, there are lots of businesses that do not have a data strategy, right? And you don't have to start big. It doesn't have to be, across the board, but at least let your vertical businesses start to have ownership of their data. Mr. Chief or Mr. or Mrs. Chief of Underwriting, the systems your team use, you are responsible for the data quality that's coming in. You are responsible for defining the data. You are responsible for identifying data sources, additional data sources. Claims departments have so many third-party vendors that they work with. These are all additional data sources that actuaries can use in the business. So I would definitely say that, in terms of quantitative value, there has to be managed expectations, and you have to have a data strategy in the business to maximize those returns.
Perfect. Thank you, Mina. Rudy, as a colleague of mine and the Lebanese Association of Actuaries, I know your passion to AI. And in fact, you were the first person who introduced me, if you remember, to the AI environment and to ChatGPT and all these technologies. And now, as we see, we are much more advanced at this level. But at the same time, I'm quite sure that we can encounter limits and challenges in such technology. My question is, what technical risks need to be managed specifically using LLM? You talked about LLM in your presentation. Is it possible to know about the limits of using LLM?
All right. So in order to answer about the technical risk on the LLM, here it comes. We start, which kind of LLM are we using? Are we using the LLM on the open source environment, acting as consultant just for brainstorming, etc.? So here we have one area, and we have the other area about the LLM. You are integrating LLM within your environment. So when you limit within your environment, you have to accept the limitations. For instance, if you want to implement LLM today using the worldwide engine and to be fully secured within your environments, most of the LLM models are implemented over the clouds and the data processing. The question, what is the data processing? Now, if you look at the regulation standards, it's a big problem if you want to process your data on the clouds where there is regulatory restrictions to transfer your personal data to run these engines. Sir, here's the technical problem is that you will face. You will implement your LLM within your, let's say, virtual server or within your server, within your company, not over the cloud. Here comes the challenges because you are implementing a LLM, a specific model, a specific logic. Here it comes how to solve this problem. Now, how to solve this problem? As we have mentioned, here it comes about the model risk management framework. What I do with my colleagues, and yesterday we were talking about the casualty risk, for example. If you want to underwrite casualty, let's say, for the casualty, you need subject matter expert to review each file, to look, covering professional indemnity for a architect, engineer, build company, for building a tower in Dubai. What you have? You have to go to get the historical of this architect. You have to look at the financials, the financial projection of this project. What are the expected loss? So it's sometimes to underwrite these accounts, you need several subject matter expert and everyone from different backgrounds. In order to solve it, using the open AI or the cloud or using within your environments, we move into the agentic AI. What is the agentic AI? I create a AI character as an actuary. I create a AI character as an underwriter. I create a AI character as an engineer. And each of us who develop these AI characteristics, we put them into one AI moderator and to simulate the dialogue and the discussions from AI perspective. And the other side, you have the underwriters, they are doing the classical method, and as we move forward, you stabilize your AI in order to match the subject matter experts' feeds. That's how to pass the technical from implementation perspective, and that's why I advise every one of us to start dealing with the agentic AI. It's available on all of the platforms, from OpenAI, Copilot, all of them. You have to create your agent. Why? Because the agent, how it works from technical point of view. The best AI is to have one engine. You give him the prompt, the instructions. You have to read this document, this document, this document. You have to interpret the following, and I need the following output. In parallel, you will attach as supporting documents. You can give the treaty wordings as a background. You give the underwriting guidelines. You give the regulatory framework. So you have an agent rich of the needed information, then you prompt. And today, our agentic AI, how it works, we receive a casualty submission. We can show a case study. I receive the casualty submission. I click on the email, drop into the AI agent, click. Within 1 minute or 2 minutes, I get a full assessment, alignment with the treaty, alignment with the regulatory framework, and as a risk assessment to write this risk and so on, and as well it provides the accumulation risk. Do we have concentration on this, or you have on the documents the same engineer appearing on different projects, all of them. So that's how to surpass your technical and to be efficient. And it is not something straightforward. It took around 6 months to 1 year to increase our accuracy.
Oh, amazing. Your passion shows, Rudy. Mani, the same question, especially for you, from your own experience here working in the GCC region, what is the main challenge you are facing using AI technologies?
I don't think there's one main challenge, but I think an easy trap to fall into is to assume that because something has worked elsewhere, it will work in the GCC region. This talks about NLP, so I'll give an NLP example. We were doing that sort of topic modeling, claims analytics type work that I spoke about earlier. where we took all the claims descriptions of a motor book in the region. And we were looking at some of the topics and what the most important words were that sort of defined that, each of the topics. And I looked at one of them and it said king and penguin. I was like, I don't know there were penguins in the Middle East. What's going on here? I had this image of the king driving around killing penguins on the main road. I was like, I don't think that's right. I don't know what I've done wrong here. Now I'm going to need some help from the Arabic speakers. But apparently, the word in Arabic for road and penguin are quite similar when you write it down. And the LLM obviously couldn't pick up that nuance at the time, and just confused the two. So it's just a really good example. It's silly as well, but it's a good example of how just blindly applying a technique and not looking at the results and assuming it's going to work the same as it always has can get you into a very... Imagine I went to someone senior and said, look, the biggest driver is the king killing penguins of your claims costs. So, that's just an example. But I think it's all about, understanding the domain that you're in. It goes back to, I think, what we've all been saying, right? If you're not in there, in the business, if you're just trying to do what you've always done and go robotically, then it's not going to work out. You might get lucky, but it's not going to work out. It all comes to communication, buy-in, making sure everyone's on board with what you're doing, and making sure they're. I think as technical experts that we all are in the room, I think it's easy for us to lock down, go through the process, and I think it's really important to involve the business, the stakeholders, not even the stakeholders, the call handlers, the claims assist, the people who are managing the claims. Actually to see what you're doing and does it make sense to them and do they see how it can be used. So, and I think just to answer the question around GCC, I think in some ways the GCC region is more willing to try this kind of stuff, so it's very exciting. But there are more issues around, let's say, regulation, where if it's not keeping up with the pace of innovation at the moment, then it can be hard to implement some of the things, even though we really, really want to. So, those are random considerations there. Yeah, go on.
Can I just add to that, if
sure.
that's okay?
Please go ahead.
You know, you'd be surprised. I think the regulator is probably more supportive than what you see from the industry. That's why I said there's two camps. There's the camps that are super interested in AI and they're, sign me up. But are they data ready? Are they ready for that? You know, it's so interesting. I'm seeing, and I'm guilty, I've ran these workshops. These AI workshops now happening all over the market in the region. What about data workshops? Does the business understand what they're going to do with the data? Because that's really the value of AI that people don't understand. AI sounds nice and glamorous and snazzy, right? But do businesses really understand what's going to happen with the data insights, right? The data insights that these solutions that you're implementing, how is the management? You know, I've worked with a lot of middle management in the industry, in the region, and unfortunately, often they are so overwhelmed with the day-to-day operations, right? And obviously this is where NLP can come to accelerate their work. However, the little time they invest in really looking at management insights to improve their performance is where AI can actually accelerate their work, right? And we always hear this in the news. AI is going to steal jobs, right? I don't believe that. I think AI will allow you to accelerate your work. I think I read the other day 40 to 60% of time actuaries are investing in only data cleaning and structuring data, right? So imagine if that is already done for you. What does that then allow you? That allows you time to do the negotiations, the communications with the business. Actuaries are never around the table on digital projects. And I know this because I've been there, right? So I think it's, I hope I just wanted to kind of add that there.
Great. So we can't thank you enough, dear panelists, for this rich discussion and amazing thoughts. So let us take the opportunity to ask questions to our expert panelists. So I would like to invite our guests, our audience, to ask questions. Please.
I'm scared, Eunice. You're gonna, yeah.
Is that green? Okay. So you guys talk about AI, which is really amazing. However, I have some background of validation. So here we are. What you guys do about validation? Because amazing AI can do maybe sometime good, sometime bad, and some of the decision, like for example, I saw this fraud and money laundering and stuff like this, which is really critical. If it goes wrong, the company will be withdrawn license in a nutshell. So, what you guys do about validation, and how you control type 1 and type 2 error? If you have time, I don't know, maybe you don't have time.
Can I ask you a question?
Ask me.
The systems that you use, does it validate information?
Well, most of system has to be validated. So there should be a validation department that actually take care of everything from A to Z in terms of validation.
No, but we're talking about technology, right?
Well, it's the same.
Yeah, so in systems today, validation is done by building rules. It's the same with AI. You build the rules to do the example I gave you of the damage assessment, right? The rule to repair a bumper versus replace can be changed, right? We know that in this market, unfortunately, in the GCC, it's very difficult to find garage workshops that will do that repairing of a bumper, of a dent. They don't have the skills. In Turkey, for example, a market I was talking to, they have the skills to be able to repair a dent, not replace. So these are rules we can customize and localize for your business. So please, I'll let Rudy and Manny also chime in, but you build rules
I'm just
to validate.
talking about statistical validation. It's not only, is this part where I agree with you with this? Is this data validation? That's amazing. But in any sort of model, prediction model, you need to have a validation. And you need to have a validation plan and validation even objective and, tolerance level if things goes wrong and stuff like this. That's my question.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about is before LLMs were a thing, right? You would build a predictive model and you would validate on 20% holdout, for example, and you would make sure that everything looks good on data it hasn't seen.
Exactly.
And then you would deploy it as well, probably in what we call shadow mode, where you just let it process, see what the results look like, match it against actuals, then do some randomized testing, 20%, 50%, 100%. Now we're good to go. I don't know why, but a lot of people have forgotten that we can probably do that with LLMs as well, right? So there's nothing stopping us from...
Good. That's my intention.
Yeah, so keep 20% of the data unseen.
Exactly.
Build your solution, see how it does on the 20%, run it in shadow mode, check we're happy, then pilot on 10%, 50%, 100% roll.
Yes. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Good, thank you.
I passed.
Very good. I will give you the certificate now.
Thank you.
I want to add one point. Here it's important what I have mentioned. If we look, for example, on Moody's website, it's official. There is the model validation framework. As I mentioned, it is the same applied everywhere. So there is a model validation framework that's being adopted, and even in Basel for the banking, there is a model validation framework and model risk management framework. Also, the same applies. Now, as I mentioned, keep your 20% and so on. We have many solutions. You can have kind of parallel run for 6 months. So depending on the criticality of the topic. Of course, when moving into AML and into compliance aspects, it's the most critical aspects. It's very important to have kind of parallel runs for a longer period, and you measure your accuracy as you move forward. You cannot develop the model, okay, the model is valid. No, without parallel run, it doesn't work. So that's why a model validation framework is a key aspect.
I fully agree with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you for your thoughts, sharing thoughts and this interesting topic. I need to spot on one of the actuarial method that we all actuaries use in assessing or projecting the claims and utilization, let's say, which is the Ebner calculation. We use this method. It's a very, very old method we're still using till today. It's a kind of retrospective analysis. We look at the previous claims history and we build our triangles, and I believe these triangles for non-actuaries is very amazing and they look at it as a magic when we build the triangles and then complete the rectangles and all of this kind of stuff. You know, of course, how it is. So my question, are we ready to transform from these old methods to a real-time actuarial intelligence and use the AI-driven tools to build our projections? And do the regulation can support that? Are we in the position now to transform from the chain ladder methods, from these old methods, to a AI tool? Then we can project, because the AI tool, I believe, can support us much, much more comparing to what we are using in the time being. But I'm not sure, are we ready from the compliance point of view, from the regulatory point of view? So what do you think?
So I'll give a perspective, and I'm sure everyone will chime in. So let's use your triangle stuff to start. By the way, I'm not an actuary, so if I say something silly, it's probably silly. But I think an example is development factors, coming up with those. I think nothing is wrong with the method today at an overall level. It will tell you what's going on across at a portfolio level. But what I think is possible, what we do is we can do much more granular. We can say, are different types of claims developing differently, or are different customers claiming in a different way? And what you can do is do that analysis, get the insight that you need. But then for the regulator, you can still aggregate it back up to portfolio level as you are today, and then show those results. So you're still satisfying the regulator in that way, but you're getting the more granular insights that AI gives you or machine learning gives you without losing that compliance angle. And I think that applies in pricing as well. So, before we were doing things, we just had a rate book and we would move the relativities around. Then we moved to GLMs. Now you've got machine learning models doing that modeling. As long as you have the right diagnostics running on those models, you can satisfy you need to have the right checks in place, right? And that's a very important thing. But you can satisfy the regulator or whoever that might be and still take advantage of all the techniques and all the new advantages. So I don't think there's anything stopping us. And a lot of people are already using these techniques, and keen to hear what other people think.
Yeah. So I answer from a technical point of view as an actuary. Now, so when talking about the triangulations and the development patterns, so we have to segregate between two main aspects. Let's talk about, let's say, the large losses with low severity. It have its area, and we have the area where there is the loss develops on the medical, on the claims, or on the property, on the attrition losses, and so on. Here's the key aspects. As you are using triangulations, you have the multiplier factors. You have to add additional risk factors. And these additional risk factors, they may change the development of your claims. And these risk factors, it should be linked using models that link these risk factors into unstructured data. So let's talk motor insurance, okay? The motor claims that arising from the flood risks, okay? So what we do, you can add a add-on factor to your development of your claims. It is linked to weather conditions data and the global warming indicators also indicates the risk factors. So you build it on your historical data just to have the correlation analysis, then using your AI, because sometimes the weather's data or the forecasting data is not publicly available. So we use
the AI, gathering the weather's reports, the market news, the reports of the global warming, and so on. You will cut your forecasting. You use your models to transfer into your risk factors. That's for the frequent claims. When it comes to the non-frequent claims, let's talk about political violence. It's very easy for the political violence. You have political indexes. You can link it to the market news data. You have a AI agent interpreting the market news to gather the bad sentiment news about the markets and so on. Then you translate it into the development of your political violence, projecting your loss ratio, your reserving, and so on.
Perfect, thank you. Do we have a last question before closing the session?
I might ask small questions.
Please, our pleasure. Thank you.
We have two in-house actuaries, Rudy, Rita, and we have two great consultants, Mina and Manny.
I'm average.
So
He's a data scientist. So he's a data scientist, you know, which means he's industry agnostic, right?
So I'm not into technicalities, but let me do a sales politics one. From the world where you stand, is AI solutions in insurance or finance, is it sold or bought today? And what are the key barriers? Is it learning? Is it knowledge? Is it aware? What are the trigger points? What are the pain points? What happens to insurance companies that are right now very profitable, yet they are very slow on the adoption track? I mean, how do you see the landscape 5 to 10 years down the line versus the early adopters and the laggers when it comes to AI adoption?
You asked if it's sold or bought, right? You're asking about supply and demand.
That's right.
I think it's both. I think everybody's selling AI and everybody wants AI. It's perfect. It's amazing. I think the early adopters, the advantage that they're going to get is that they will fail on some of the use cases that they try. But that's a good thing. I know it doesn't sound like a good thing, but it's a good thing because when you try something and it fails, you learn how to make it work the next time. And so the advantage from being an early adopter isn't, oh, you're going to make loads of money next year. It's when the technology matures, when the people mature, you are maturing with it. And so when the opportunity comes, you'll be able to capitalize on it straight away. I think that's the benefit for early adopters. But that's not to say that there aren't benefits now. And NLP is an example. We've spoken about examples already where NLP is helping a business and helping make things quicker or improve the value increase the value generated by a business. But the newest technologies, I think just by trying, you learn. Just by learning, you do it better the next time, and it will go from there.
I think this is a market that has unfortunately been burned before by many vendors that have tried to come into the market over-promised and under-delivered. And I think there is a general suspicion of solution providers that are coming, because really when you really think about what AI can do, I mean, what Mani and Rudy presented, it's really brilliant. I mean, it's something, for a company that still operates with paper. And yes, there are insurance businesses in this market that are still using paper, right? So for them, this is just seems very far and distant. I had a meeting with a client the other day, and they were doing they've already selected a new core insurance system, and it was kind of a first session with them. And I asked him, I said, does the new system you're implementing have AI functionality? And he said, no, don't use these words with me. I don't want to hear about AI. And I said, but what is the resistance? And then I had to really explain to him, well, AI doesn't have to be grand. It can be an OCR tool that you can use to now read your medical records and read your medical reports and read your handwritten repair estimates that you have that are sitting in your motor claims departments in boxes, right? And you can use that data and ingest it in your core insurance system for management insights. So I think there is a general suspicion, mainly because they're hearing these, the moon and the stars. So this is why I told Ritza when I was coming on this panel, I said, I want to talk about implementation because you can be educated on the technology and the technology is going so fast. We will never be up to date. Honestly, we will never really be up to date with what is actually happening around the world. So, but continue that education. But there has to also be an education on how we select the right vendors and the right partners to help us digitize.
I want to add to what have been mentioned and answer to your question about the sales. Maybe my friends from US and Canada can confirm. I believe from there is mandatory plans to have a mandatory for back office operations. There is a mandatory percentage of your budget and your expenses to be invested on your AI. For the banks, and I don't know if the insurance companies, it's happening today. For my colleagues, my friends in Canada and US, it's happening, and I believe this will be transferred into different countries to have a mandatory investment on the AI. That's one. And two, I will not answer too long, a very short answer. And two, what we are doing currently, as you know, on most of the companies 5 years back, there was cybersecurity awareness campaign. Today, I insist for all companies to launch AI awareness campaign. To mention to the people you are using, what are the risks of AI? Don't rely on AI. We have to put your strategy. AI awareness campaign, launching at the companies. This will create a platform how to enhance our AI at the companies.
Great. Thank you, Brother Ibrahim, for this important question. I will take the opportunity to answer your question and to close this rich discussion. In addition to all technologies and all what the panelists and my colleagues said, I think that we are in the process of maturing, as Mani mentioned. And at this stage, it's very important to build the trust between the vendor and the client. And in this process, in my opinion, above all the technologies, it's very important to show transparency, to show fairness, ethics, professional responsibility, and I'm quite sure that all these values will increase positively the appetite of the client to implement AI technologies. Thank you for the opportunity to moderate this rich and excellent panel with the experts in AI. It was my pleasure to discuss with you. Thank you to everyone.
First, I would like to ask the panel member to introduce themselves. So start with Said, can you?
Yeah. Good morning.
It's okay.
Yes, it works now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Syed Musa Ali. I am a senior manager at SHMA Consulting. I'm a traditional actuary, but this is the part where actuaries have to be much more. And this means that on a continuous basis, we're always exploring all the other areas that we can contribute to. And these days, climate risk is the one where I'm branching off to. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ernest. I'm an actuary by training. I work for Marsh here in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. I lead the analytics, risk finance, and captives practice. Somehow climate has also fallen into it, and I'm responsible for India, Middle East, and Africa. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ronald. I'm an actuary. I have been working in the region for, I would say, more than 30 years now. And given the lack of actuaries at the time, we were forced to work in various, I would say, line of business and different, I would say, practices, which was very enriching. This was a long time ago. Now we are gonna have specialists. But during, I would say, my 30 years of experience, I learned something very important, which I would like to share with the actuaries or the young actuaries here, is we need to move from complexity to simplicity. Okay, we are forced to have every complex model. We can achieve the same with much simple models. So we need to keep this in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I am Yunus Osman. I'm an actuary also and a financial engineer, and I work for Quantica. It's a climate risk modeling, and that's why maybe I'm moderating. So guys, it's a little bit complex topic, but because it's complex and a lot of things happening, mainly, for example, what's happening now in Morocco, really, it's really big problem now in Morocco because of coastal floods. Algeria also really sad. So it's very hot, isn't it? It's exactly like global warming. It's very hot. And I would like actually to ask the audience at the start. This is this guy coming to ask us, But that's how we're gonna work. We need to participate. So anyone knows why it's really important for the Middle East global warming and how it's actually compared to other? Anyone knows? Yes. He's Moroccan first, Dr. Shakir.
Let me say something.
Yes, sir.
First, I'm an ex-reinsurance underwriter. When you are a reinsurance underwriter, you have to assess your accumulation. Let's say by risk, by country, by region, etc., etc. And automatically you have to understand, let's say, the natural catastrophe. A natural catastrophe, it's a large scope. It starts with the earthquake, then you have the floods, then you have the drought, then etc., etc., etc. And even now, a pandemic like what we had 5 years ago, it's also a catastrophe. It's similar, it's similar. Now in the MENA region, we are in the middle of, let's say, many risks. The first risk, just to start with the earthquake, you have, I don't know how to call it, this is geological. You have countries like Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine. They are in a earthquake zone. If you go to North Africa, from the northern part of Tunisia until Agadir in Morocco, you have a second line.
Yes.
Okay, this is starting with the earthquake. We had one earthquake in 2023. We had one earthquake in Morocco in I think it's 24 or something like this. But the biggest one was in 1961 in Agadir. It destroyed the city of Agadir. Okay. In Algeria, Al Asnam, it was called Orleansville. 1954, destroyed completely. 1980, destroyed again completely. When it comes to cyclones, you have Oman and part of the UAE. I have been in UAE for a long time, for 13 years, and I remember at least twice we had Gunu, we had Shaheen, and last year we had Mikono. Do you want me to continue? But the worst is not even this. The worst, in fact, is the desert. You see the desert, it's expanding to the north. And you see part of, for example, in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, even in Egypt, you have now the climate change. It's very clear.
Yes.
When it comes to drought, when it comes to now, you have, if you go to some oases, and I remember when I was a kid, I used to go to some oases in the south of Morocco. They are disappearing. And you can even rarely find them. What we had in Morocco, or what we have in Morocco since the second half of December is completely crazy. I was in Morocco during this period, the second half of December. It was, we have the rain each and every day. On last Wednesday, we had in the northern part of Morocco 150 millimeter in one day. Can you imagine one day? And between Wednesday and yesterday, they had to move 108,000 people from their homes a state to protect. But the worst is coming, is we have the dam, one of the dam, maybe there is a risk of collapsing. But I have to stop here, you know.
Yeah. This is okay. So in a nutshell, I just want to, maybe I will answer the question, which is actually we have a double warming, more even than any place else in the world. And there's actually, in terms of, you mentioned about, drought, right? And we have actually 13 countries of the most stressed nation. So in a nutshell, if something will happen, I think this region will be more affected than anywhere else. So again, some of the information strike me, by the way, when I was, preparing for this. Some of it is really striking. So we have a double warming. Everyone is actually aiming for 1.5. If we manage to do something, we will be 5%, 5 degrees. Sorry. So we are double than average. And in terms of drought, we are 13. We have 13 countries in this region suffering from water scarcity from the start. So we are really in a not good position. Having said this, we haven't started yet. So I will start first. Now we have the opportunity to start. And I will start with Mr. Said. You want to give us some definitions and... Yes.
I actually have a presentation today, so I'm just going to start with that. Many of you, when you hear about climate change risks, the first thing that comes into your mind are storms. Show of hands. Who thinks that climate risks are storms? Right, everyone's sleepy. But the thing is, climate risk is so much more than that. Because yes, we have storms, but that's just acute physical risk. You also have gradual chronic risks like desertification. Biomes are changing and these things have an impact. And at the same time, it's not just the climate that's changing. We also have societies, regulators, governments responding to these changes. And this shift in the regulatory, the market landscapes also come with their own risks. So you have climate change contributing to risks, you have their responses contributing to risks, which are called transition risks, and then we also have liability risks forming from these shifts in attitudes. So allow me to delve a little deeper into that. So these three areas give you these three different types of risks. First, obviously, is the physical risk, where you will have changes in the environment. You will have drastic changes like storms. You will have gradual changes. So, for example, when we talk about rain, yes, when you have a lot of rain in one day, that causes a lot of damage. But just having more rain over a period causes water damage to your buildings. London is no stranger to rain, right? But over the past 3 years, their property loss ratios have gone up to 150%, 200% across the market. Why? Because of water damage. Can you imagine that? London having trouble with water damage. And this is happening around the world. So we all have experienced hotter summers, colder winters, and both of these are just lasting for longer periods. And this naturally has an impact on the risks that we're all ensuring, that we're all valuing. Similarly, we have transition risks. So as governments try and implement new policies, new regulations, new requirements for governance, this means that companies will have to adapt. And the failure to adapt creates risk. Similarly, as consumers shift to, let's say, more renewables forms, as markets shift to, for example, electrical vehicles, the risk pool that we're ensuring starts to evolve. And that means that creates a new host of risks. Lastly, we have liability risk. So this means that because attitudes have started to change and there's a lot more scrutiny in dimensions that we weren't even looking at before, this exposes companies to more liabilities, right? So for example, previously you didn't have these requirements for ESG disclosures as much. Now, because you have these requirements, then there's a risk that you will fail to comply with them, and that opens up new risks. And just to delve a little deeper into how each of these hit insurers, I'll try not to take too much of this. So let's start with physical risk, probably the simplest one of all. When you have physical events, naturally you have more claims frequency, you have claim severity, but it doesn't stop there. So anyone who was here for the Dubai rainfall event knows that in these circumstances, operations take a huge hit. You don't, for example, yes, there are a lot of car claims coming in, but you don't even have the people to go get those cars from where they're stuck. You don't have surveyors to, review them. You don't even have the capacity in your call centers and operations to deal with customers who have these problems. And even if you get the claim, even if you get the car, you don't have garage capacities to service these things. And even after that, even after you've done this, and you have all of this salvage, you can't sell it off. First, you don't have the necessary parts to repair these because there's a surge in demand. And then the salvage, you can't sell it off because there's a certain supply. So there's a huge ripple effect when these things come in and they hit across the board. And not to mention, the insurance company is also a company that's operating here. So their own operations are also hit. So physical risks take a lot of dimensions, and they do have a ripple effect. And this is something that we all need to start considering. Next, transition risks. These are a little subtler and they take a longer time horizon, but this is probably one of those things that you can't really avoid. Even if one argues that, okay, maybe we won't be hit by storms as much, maybe they happen once or 2 years, or for example, you call a event once in 25 years or once in 75 years. But transition, this is something you can't deny. You know that new regulations are coming in, which first of all builds operational strain on the companies, that they need to start understanding these things, they need to start adapting to these things. Not to mention, as I mentioned, as underlying risks start to shift, this means that companies have to start dealing with that. They have more governance requirements, you have more assessments that needs to happen. And these create their own risks. Not to mention there are reputation risks involved, which naturally brings us to liability risks. Because when, again, these events happen and you have a lot of claims, you also have a lot of angry customers who are going to start disputing what's covered and what's not. And this ultimately starts creating liability risks. So all of these things are stemming from the simple thing that is climate change, but the idea is that it's not one thing. It affects us all on so many different fronts. Thank you so much.
It was really essential to reverse the trend. This year, they barely talked about the climate change. They talked about a climate policy recession, meaning that the government action are being much less than what would be expected from them. So
physical is fresher in everyone's mind because of the recent events. But specifically for UAE, for example, I would argue that transition is probably the bigger train that's hurt coming our way. But again, as Mr. Chikup said, when you expand the scope, when you talk about not just the GCC, but let's say all of North Africa, there are a lot more risks, and physical is a reality that you can't really avoid here.
Anyone from the audience have another opinion? You want to debate? No one?
Usman, can I just chime in a little bit there? The difference between physical and transition can be seen in whether it's the short-term or long-term effect.
Okay.
Right? So physical is going to be more longer-term. It might seem counterintuitive, but climate change takes place over 20, 30 years.
Yes.
Typically, after the operational lifetime of some of the most important assets that you will see in this country, your port and terminals, your oil refineries, your airports, and such things like that.
Yes.
Right. So they have a bit more time to kind of, well, time is always relative, but time to react to the change.
Realize, yeah.
However, transition risk affects businesses now, today.
Exactly.
Your supply chains, your customer base, your liability profiles, D&O, everything else that comes out from there. So I'm just giving those thoughts in the mind.
I can.
Healthcare, let's put it this way.
Definitely, I agree with you. I think transition risk is actually more than physical risk for this region. For many reasons. First of all, because it's for example, this region is more oil export, so it's going to affect the price of carbon. Is also the drought effect going to have something called nexus effect, which is going to affect the price of oil, and then it will affect water scarcity, and then it will create, I would say, some economic problems. So I think it's a transition risk is, I think, the things that we really need to start, either mitigating or even understanding what will happen, because till now we didn't even start. So who's the next?
And I guess transition risk is not something that might be seen to be immediately insurable as well, right? Given that we are a collection of actuaries and insurers in the room here, and reinsurers.
Well, I agree to some extent, because some of the risk you cannot insure. As you know, for example, inflation and stuff like this, you cannot insure. But I fully agree that the most insurable one, for sure, you guys can. You are in March. You tell us.
Okay, let's shift to Ron. He's standing there. Ron.
It was really essential to reverse the trend. This year, they barely talked about the climate change. They talked about a climate policy recession, meaning that the government action are being much less than what would be expected from them. So here, a different source, which is the US government agency, we can see that starting 2000, this would be the number of large losses in the US that are growing exponentially. And this is very obvious on the trend. And this main explanation is due to the severe storms and cyclones that are hitting the US on a yearly basis. Okay, this would be numbers. Now, if we look into some ratios, we have the insurance industry, and we all see on the news, we have 100 billion of losses, of insured losses. It goes up to 200 billion. We have 400 billions of economic losses. So these numbers are not being really put into perspective. Do you have any idea, if we look at the economic losses to the GDP over time, how it has evolved? So I think this is very important metrics that is not being always used, not to say very rarely used. It's very strange, because you will see that over time, the economic losses over GDP has reduced, actually. And the last 20 years, it is almost stabilizing around, I would say, depending on the various sources we are using to estimate these losses, but it is less than 0.3%, which is not much. If we remove from this ratio insured losses and earthquake, which we cannot do much, so if we just keep to the climate-related losses, it goes down to 0.18% of the global GDP. So seen at the global level, this is not a high ratio, it's very low. But of course, I would say exposed economies or small economies, if they have these large losses, they will be hit very hard. But once again, if we look at the global figure, having 0.7, 0.8 is not much. So we can think about having a global solidarity fund, which, because the numbers are not that high, but it will be helping and assisting a lot the markets. Unfortunately, nothing has been done much on that. Instead, we were, I would say, the communication was based on fear. Unfortunately, we're talking about global warming. I just said this 2-3 times now. Maybe to sound more like a warning. But if we look into the terms that were used based on fear, we cannot build much based on fear. However, if we use a different tone to open debates, it's different. Now it's shifted into climate change, which is a more positive tone than global warming. But I will use the term of climate risk, okay, so that we don't go into the debate. Climate risk is real. I think we are all in agreement on this. But I would not say this is something existential at a global scale for now, because it can be manageable. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't come up with any solution. Now, this is a very interesting study that was done many years ago and updated recently in 2024. So this is based on a macroeconomic model using large losses and various, I would say, variables. It's comparing two different, I would say, models. an economy who has a financing mechanism, an economy who has a lousy or no financial mechanism. So what's the impact of a major event on these economies? So in the blue, we can see actually in the first 3 to 4 years, we have an increase of the real GDP. So the GDP is increasing because of rebuilding and creating of the leverage effect of pumping of money in terms of solving the issues. Then it stabilized around 4% plus for the GDP. So actually, if we have major events, it can help boosting the economy, which is a bit weird, provided you have a proper mechanism in place. Now, for countries that have very poor mechanism in place, over time they will be losing up to 4% of the GDP. And imagine this kind of events happening and recurring every 10 years for these economies. It makes them it's difficult for them to move up. So it's very important also to talk about solidarity among various territories to maintain macroeconomic stability, not globally, but also at the level of smaller countries. You have different financing mechanisms that exist today. In the region, the most known is, of course, insurance/reinsurance. We have very limited, I would say, initiatives on the pool side. We have Algeria, we have Morocco, and I'm sure now Shakib will tell us about what's happening in GAFE, because definitely we had the fair which was Asia-Africa. They came up with a cat pool, but it didn't fly, unfortunately. Now we'll see from Shakib about the GAFE. Definitely something that has to be done. Other tools, which are not very common, I would say, in the region, would be ILS, insured linked securities, and the bulk would be cat bond. And these usually are extremely good tools when it goes into very high losses and top layers, because they are cheaper than traditional reinsurance business. And you have the PPP, public-private partnership. We haven't seen much in our region, but definitely this is something we have to build on. Thank you very much.
Guys, no question for him?
I thank you for this presentation because it's giving the global view. Now, answering your question about what can be done on the Arab world, etc. We come up in 2022, in September, we presented what we call the Natural Catastrophe Arab Initiative. Unfortunately, and I have to say it, I keep fighting for this, but the response from the market, the response from the regulator, the response from the Arab League, the response from the United Nations, it's disappointing. I want to meet the UNDRR, which is the United Nations Disaster and Risk Resolution, something like this. I went to the Arab League. We presented the initiative. The initiative was very simple. In fact, what we wanted the Arab markets or the Arab insurance industry to do is a very simple thing. It's a pool in 3 layers. The first layer, we gather the capacity by country. For example, if we take, for example, in Morocco, let's consider that the local capacity or the local retention can be $50 million. If we consider $50 million by 18 countries, because other countries cannot afford participating to this initiative, we can gather something like 900 to $1 billion. Over that, we can go to the international market and buy traditional reinsurance. And what we offer, but in a later stage, it's a 3rd layer, which is the ILS, as you said. And now, what we have in the Arab world, we have different systems. We have, except Morocco and Algeria, there is one initiative in Oman, and it is not yet materialized. In Morocco, you have the FSEC, which is the Fonds de Solidarité des événements catastrophiques. It is working in a very good manner because it started in 2020, and in fact, this fund, it is for non-insured, let's say, people, but the low-income population, etc. When we had this earthquake in 2023, In fact, the fund was able to collect from the reinsurance market 300 or 320 million US dollar, which is not a big amount. It is something like 10% of the let's say of the total loss. But at least there was some relief. And parallel to this, in Morocco they have also the insurance and this thing. How the best thing about this fund, in fact, the way it is collecting, premium. Whenever you buy an insurance policy in Morocco, you pay something like 1.5%. It has been increased, I think, this year or last year. And this is something because when you pay for your motor policy 1% or 2%, you will not even feel it. And this is something important. But now the problem is, can the fund, let's say, can this fund afford having 3 catastrophes or 4 catastrophes? Parallel to this, in Morocco since 2000, they have for the drought, they have an insurance scheme working very well. However, the percentage of farmers buying this cover is still very small. And as mentioned by Ronald, the key in such initiative is the public-private partnership. Just to make a comparison, when we had this earthquake in Syria in 2023, the insured, let's say the insured, I think it was 0 or close to nil. The difference between Morocco and Syria. In Syria, especially with the sanction, they were not able to collect anything from the insurance industry, and even they had no mechanism. And when you see this extreme, when we had the floods in Libya, in Darna, they couldn't collect anything, from the international market. The problem is, you need the political will to start something. And the political will is not there. If you accept Oman, Morocco, and Algeria, there is no political will. I'm sorry, but
it's okay. It's okay. So I have a comment on that. I think it's very, very, very good statistics. Actually, I verify the numbers, just to be honest with you. When I saw it, oh wow, this is really nice. However, I just have only one comment, which is we just compare on the total GDP. Again, for some countries, it is even more than 20% or even 30%. For a big like USA, yes, it's 0.5 or 0.03 because GDP of USA is very big. So I think it's 29 trillion. If I'm maybe USC people here, 29 trillion GDP. No, 29. Yes. So 29 trillion. Yeah. Whatever it will be very small. But for a countries like Caribbean, I think there's one guy from Caribbean. He can tell us. Yes, you sir. That's what I'm talking about. So here it is. For some countries, it's really big. For some countries, it can be small not because of the size of the claim is small, but the GDP is very big. But having said this, the numbers have been verified. I think it's really good, very good exercise. Create the debate, and now it's time for the reinsurance and Marsh.
Insurance, anyway.
Okay, go ahead.
Very much, Usman. Years ago, when there was the big floods in Dubai, as a show of hands. Okay, some of you. And for those of you who were around, how many actually checked your policies as to whether you were covered?
Be honest, guys. Be honest, please. Yes. No one. Wow.
No, but I'll tell you my answer later, right? So please remind me if I forget, because I'm going to go into the presentation now. And I'm going to talk about the topic of insurability. And before just for me to kick off, insurability does mean many different things to many different people in different contexts, right? Whether you're insurer, reinsurer, the different sectors, the different countries. Now, simply put, insurability in the context of climate change, climate resilience, is about whether a risk can be covered and how it's going to be covered given, number one, results of a risk assessment. Where is the risk going? What are the trends? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Are there emerging risks? Number two, underwriting standards. What deductibles, what retentions should we apply? What limits should we give? And number three, regulatory conditions. Should this risk be actually given, allowed to be insured in the country by the country's regulator as a public good? And what you see behind me is, I'm not going to go through all these perils in detail, but in the world of natural hazards, they include what we call both chronic and acute risks. Chronic risks are the ones that people often talk about in climate context. They're ones that are creeping. You may not see it here, but one day it's going to come up on you. Things like coastal inundation, for example. As my kind of co-panelists have already said, right? The Middle East is very, very susceptible to two things, primarily heat stress and water scarcity, right? And the rates of which these perils are likely to change in the GCC is going to affect, to a certain degree, insurability, the types of product designs, the conditions in which insurance can and cannot be covered, right? And I'm talking, just think about going beyond your traditional property and casualty, residential homes, light commercial, motor. I'm thinking about some of the industrial risks. The UAE and the region is very, very dependent on the hydrocarbon industry, if you think about it. There is also the healthcare aspects. So things like temperature rise, which is almost something that we see here today and is not going to get better, is going to be a key piece. And agriculture. Agriculture is very, very susceptible to temperature and rainfall and drought, right? So, this starts prompting, I think, the market to think about new products, new designs. For those of you who may have heard, parametric solutions may be key. I've seen them coming up already in the field of agriculture insurance, for example. I work a lot in the oil and gas sector. My clients are the big oil and gas majors in the GCC, and they're talking about some of the engineering aspects of what we call climate adaptation. How do we adapt our current assets to be more resilient, right? Not so much primarily because of insurance or insurability, they care about that, they definitely care about premiums, but more holistically as the overall risk management approach. So let me say this first, is insurability a threat in the region right now? No, it isn't, and I'll show you some statistics why it's not. Now, is insurability already a concern? Yes, it is, right? And if you look at these numbers here, right, we're talking about insurance gaps. And what the insurance gap typically is, what climate is doing to insurance gap is typically increasing, because as the risks become more uncertain, frequency is going up, severity is becoming more volatile, that gap, which already exists, is going to increase, right? And that typically also broadly reflects what we call the resilience gap, right? Some of the solutions, as you can see, I've been talking about the public-private partnerships like Flood Re. That was done, right, to benefit the UK with respect to flood risk. And I think the other key salient point here is insurance by itself will not be able to cover and deal with just the protection gap. It has to take into account all stakeholders, asset owners, project managers, civil governments, right, setting the right standards. The financing of adaptation measures is also going to be a key piece, right, to help insurability and also ensure that asset resilience, so that actually businesses can still rely on insurability as they go forward, because it is a very key part of any sort of business. Now, what does climate do? So I'm just going to draw your attention to that chart over there, right? And right now there is a disconnect between where insurance rates are going and what climate change is doing. So if you look at the map of the United States and focus on the Western United States here, we know that California is a huge and very prosperous, very big economy. It is also very subject to wildfire, right? But what is true is that they are actually quite high risk, but they actually don't pay the most in terms of home insurance relative to the home value there. And I think people will know that because of Hollywood and all that things that you see on the social media, the property values there are probably higher than everywhere else. And a couple of reasons for that, right? There are market dislocations because of what insurance can and can't do. Insurers can't do, can and cannot charge, right? But what is happening now after the wildfires of California, right? Fire risk is no longer going to be insured or insured commercially or affordably by the market. So, you know, we may not have thought about it, but this already becomes a concern. Insurance is no longer available. Now, will we see this in Europe? It's hard to say, but I think some of the concerns in the more developed markets in Europe, the US, and the UK are beginning to think about this, right? And what we see here is that the scientists are telling us this, look, climate risk is going up. And at the same time, what we're saying is that insurance rates are not actually having any sort of correlation to that. And there are good reasons for why, right? First of all, climate change is a 20 to 50-year risk, depending on your views of it. The underwriter thus needs to take risk for 1 year. He always has a choice to decide whether to take a risk or not, right? And in hard market conditions, where capital is scarce, reinsurance rates are high, there's always a flight to quality. And I think that's what we call the asymmetry of climate risk with respect to insurance rates. At the risk of being challenged here, these are Marsh's rates, and this kind of illustrates the point I want to make here. If you take a look at the property rates, they've come down, right? This is for IMEA, India, Middle East, and Africa, right? And it bears absolutely nothing to where climate risks are going. Just out of curiosity, I also checked what it was for Asia. And the reason why is Asia is also a very cat-exposed, very climate-exposed region of the world. As you can see, you know, the property rates have actually come down year on year, quarter on quarter, right? And this is a general trend in the market where the rates are driven by reinsurance capacity going through the world. Now, my colleagues talked about the fact that about 100 billion of insured losses, you know, are incurred every year. And in fact, they've not only been incurred every year, they've been incurred consecutively for 5 years. So you think about it, the amount of capital that's coming in is clearly skewing a lot of what we call climate trends, right? It doesn't translate into insurance rates. Now, what these numbers don't show is that underlying the property is that there have been structural differences in the way insurance is purchased and acquired. Right, so one of the things that insurers are starting to do, and I'm talking about the Middle East, okay, is that what you see here is deductibles have changed. So after the floods of 2024, deductibles went up and they have started coming down. Part of why this is coming down is because insurance panels are changing, right? There has been a discussion on how we can make some of these prior risks more resilient, basically putting in some of these flood protections, especially in light commercial, light industrial properties. But what is also true is that certain things, for example, if you were, say, El Haptor, or if you were one of these motor showrooms, you cannot the insurer will not cover you for hail for your vehicles if you parked it outside a car lot without hail netting. So that in itself is a risk that they have decided to exclude, right? And it's putting the pressure on the fact that you, asset owner, have to do something in order to continue, you know, putting yourself and representing yourself as an insurable risk. But what is also true is that for people, for asset owners and businesses who have done nothing to change, right, to improve their risk, they still have managed to get the kind of rate reductions. They may not have been able to get the same deductibles that they did prior to the flood events, but this presents a problem because people are benefiting from rates without doing anything. So it kind of masks the fact that, you know, a lot more work needs to be done in terms of insurability. And if you think about the generic market cycles that insurance takes between, say, every 5 and 7 years, what that tends to happen is that in a soft cycle, right, the climate signals are almost going to be muted, right? And in a hard cycle, right, it's going to, you know, as insurers seek to replenish the capital, rebuild their ROEs, the only way they can do that is through premium hikes, right? And that is going to overstate the climate. And it makes it very hard to have stakeholder buy-in to say that, look, something really needs to be done to assist us in the way we think about insurance and insurability. And because of just coming to some of the things that Marsh did about research on the 2024 flood events, right? I think there still remains a big insurance gap, right? Insurance penetration for P&C lines is about 2.7%, and most of it, right, the 3.2 billion of loss was actually reinsured out to the markets. About 80% perhaps went into the insurance markets, international reinsurance markets. And you think about what I just said about every year, 100 billion of losses gets incurred worldwide. That 3.2 billion is a small drop in the ocean. Markets hardly felt it. And that's also part of the reasons why, you know, you don't see the kind of pricing effects, right? So I think the other thing here is the event also highlighted a real need for people to think about adaptation in the long run. It has now changed the calculus of the government to say, look, bigger storm drains are needed, better flood protections, better weather protections are needed, right? And certainly the better prepared organizations, at least in my world, right, will be able to minimize disruptions to the insurance, to the operations overall, and certainly to mitigate any increases in their insurance rates. Thank you.
I think, and then when you start segregating it, you start getting this is actually a risk because it's too much for one person to handle. And then the interesting thing happens is that when you have that risk, who's gonna bear the burden? Does the insurance industry absorb that risk by charging high premiums, but then we have the problems of affordability and insurability? Or what the second thing that insurers can do is that pass the risk back to the people by, you know, raising deductibles, by creating exclusions for these things. So I think this is something that we all live to see, that how the risk is there, but how we're going to deal with that as, you know, as an industry, as a species, is going to be pretty interesting.
I should say I forgot one thing. I did not check my policies as well.
Okay, I will continue with what Said was saying. So when you take an example, a couple of days ago, I was talking with a friend who has business in the UAE, and he has warehouse, and I would say goods in the warehouse. And he asked me the question, is it normal to have my premium doubling compared to last year? I said, it depends. Do you have claims? He said, no. I said, what's the excuse given by the insurance company? He said, because last year they lost a lot of money on flood and they need to increase the rates. Okay, this sounds logical, but when you start asking questions, you just understand the lack of underwriting. I will explain why. First, where is the warehouse located in Jabal Ali? Do you had any, I would say, floods? No. Okay. Is it on the ground or it's, I would say, on a higher floor? No, it's on a higher floor. So are your goods, I would say, exposed to water or flood? They said no. Even if there is flood, it would be very minimal, I would say, impact. So my biggest question is not only about insurability, it's about understanding the underlying risks and about scoring and pricing. It's not one rate fits all, which we see unfortunately in the region. It is important to be able to understand the risk. So I go more into risk segmentation, and everything can be insurable at the right cost and price.
Yeah, Ernest, have a good example about this.
So exactly, I think understanding the risk is clear. So I was in Dubai when the floods happened, right? And what you might have expected, the water did not come through the front door. Actually, it came through the walls and the ceiling. Now, why is that? It came through the ceiling because most Dubai houses are built of concrete. Concrete is porous, right? So that was something that was not thought about, right? Instead of having your traditional flood loss calculations, which is the amount of water inundation from the ground, it does suddenly change the calculus. Now, I'm not saying that water inundation did not affect in some of these residential estates. Some of it was quite serious. I saw videos where people were actually rowing boats, in that. The other thing is, I have had the, real, privilege of going to some of these big oil sites. And this was not from the 2024 floods, right? It was before that. I wouldn't name the oil company, but I went to Fujairah and they took me around the perimeter, right? And where you can see, and this is really a need to improve the understanding of such a Nat Cat peril called flood, is that they had a lot of changes in terms of urban usage around there. There was a known wadi that was coming down, right? The water literally came through, punched through the security wall of this oil terminal, went in and literally flooded and disrupted the control room. I mean, you when talk about a control room of an oil terminal, we're talking about a massive amount of disruption, right? So in terms of it, number one, better understanding of what flooding can do. Number two, what they didn't think about is that actually there was a culvert there. There was this water coming through that was going through a channel that would have taken it out into the sea. That was blocked because of the debris that was coming out. So a lot of these mitigations needs to go beyond insurance to actually, your risk doesn't stop at your fence, right? Your risk needs to take on everything that is around you, because as what we all talk about, it's accumulation effect.
Agreed. Guys, any questions? Where is the guy who wants to ask about what's the time now? No one? Any more questions? Mr. Shakib. Okay, go ahead. Yes. Okay, Mr. Shakib.
If you allow me to add one information.
Okay.
The protection gap in the Arab world is 86%. This is very important. When try to imagine 86% protection gap. This is crazy. And I have two questions to Ernest. The first question is on the global level. I think we have reached a time where ensuring natural catastrophe is becoming almost impossible. Honestly speaking, because when you see that for the last 5 years, I think the natural catastrophe have exceeded 100 billion. I think one day is like the cyber, in the cyber. If there is no solution, let's say maybe a financial solution or something, we need to do some engineering to find solution, because I think insurance has reached the limit. This is what do you think about this? And my second question is about the pricing, because I was not expecting to see the rate decreasing after 2024 floods, because I was thinking that because of the floods, people will think, and people were talking about hard market and the market is hardening, etc. But let me tell you something. I have been in the Arab market, in the GCC market, since 1990. There is no hard market. There was never hard market. It's always a soft market, because one very simple reason. One, there is no actual pricing at all. And I have been an underwriter, and I know you go to the companies and you ask people, and Ronald mentioned this about the warehouse, why are you pricing this 0.3? No, because the competitor is giving 0.35, we are giving 0.3. Okay, that's it.
We will answer. Maybe, do you want to answer, Ernst? If you don't mind. Yes, please.
Shall I answer the question?
Yeah, yes.
So you're absolutely right. There is not a big degree of what we call risk-based pricing in the region, and partly also because economically there has been no need to. So if you think about what are the big 5 top natural catastrophes, insured catastrophe in the world: North American wind, Gulf of Mexico wind, Californian earthquake, Japanese earthquake, European windstorm, right? anything else is like a diversifier to the big reinsurers. So they haven't focused as much. Now, as and when this will change is very hard to tell. The moment you get a big loss that starts to impact their capital, the international reinsurance capital it will make. The moment you have some of these hedge funds who are providing an increasing chunk of stable incoming capital to support the reinsurance market. You're talking about ILS funds, the hedge funds, right? The what we call the ART, alternative risk transfer solutions. That will start to happen. So my kind of takeaway is that for Marsh tells his clients, please do something about your resilience, right? Please, even though you are benefiting from a soft market, don't ditch your insurance partners just to get, a discount. Especially in the hard market, don't discount. In the soft market, stick with them because these are the guys who are going to see you through when you don't have it. For companies and organizations that haven't adapted, I think they are going to be at the sharp end of premium rate rises when capacity gets withdrawn from the market. That's the thing. So it's hard to say. I completely agree there is a need to have more technical pricing, more better understanding of risk, not so much competitive pricing. Maybe, and I speak, with some speculative, to the extent that some more of the risk can be retained locally rather than thus being ceded to the reinsurance, that might force them to take a different pricing approach.
Ronald.
Yes, I would like to talk a bit about policies. Let's assume that we can find insurance. The issue is not being able to pay or not, is being to enforce the law. I'll give you an example. You have Algeria and you have Turkey. They have a mandatory insurance law to protect against cat-nat, even though the penetration was less than 15 to 20%. Even if you take the Algeria, after 10, 15 years, it's still very, very low. I was trying to be generous. So,
give up numbers.
so the issue is not insurability as such, is how would you be enforcing? And every time you go with a mandatory, insurance penetration is a very hard product to sell. And when it's mandatory, people are just to see this as a tax. So if they see this as a tax, why not having something mandatory, but creating a fund and taxing, I would say, property, because property insurance is property kind of. So these are things we have to think of, because for now we think about insurance, but we don't think about protection, which I would say two different things. Thank you.
Allow me to start by answering Mr. Shakib's question of why the premiums, we could see that premiums are falling. And Ernest can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was because the risk was ceded back to the policyholders. They implemented a sharp increase in the deductibles. So naturally, if you increase the deductibles, the reinsurer is taking on less risk, so they can afford to reduce the premium. So the reduction in the premiums is not an expectation that the risk is small. It is basically the reinsurer is taking on lower risk. Like, for example, he mentioned that fire is now an exclusion. So if you start removing these things, you pass the risk back, and that leads to smaller premiums.
Okay.
With that said, I think the third discussion about the lack of underwriting, and I think part of the reason I personally see that happening is that because in this region, a lot of the pricing, especially on the property side, that is reinsurers driven, right? Insurance companies aren't really doing any underwriting as such. They just go to the reinsurer, they take a rate, they build a little bit on top of it, and they sell it forward. Now, there's sort of a chicken and egg problem here, is that because unless the insurers are collecting the level of data that can enable better underwriting, they can't enable the reinsurer to do better underwriting, and that means that they're not going to get a rate. So if the reinsurer is obviously going to price at a macro level, and especially when the insurance companies are not giving them data.
Thank you, Sayed. I think, Yunus, you might take one more question from Tanveed, because she's been waiting, and then we have to close. Because today is Friday and there is this Friday prayer thing.
Yes, I'm so
go ahead.
Go ahead with another question, yes, please.
And hopefully it will be answered by just one of the speakers. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
thank you for taking this up. Actually, my question was in sync with the previous one itself. You very well mentioned that it's a very cyclical problem, because when I saw those figures of property premium rates actually falling down, and given the events that recently also happened, it was very intuitive that probably you'll see a spike in the premiums, which actually Ronald also highlighted that one of his friends said that, my premium's almost doubling. Do you think the answer to when you said that, that they brought in deductibles, most of the risks was being passed to the insured per se, is it a very long-term solution, or is it just a temp solution? And are we being reactive, and do we want to be more proactive? Because climate, as you said, may not be a very big risk as we are seeing right now, but we definitely know it is impacting us in a big way coming forth. So should we be more proactive today, or are we still going to see insurance industry as reactive?
I think we all know what the right answer is. We all, as in insureds and insurers and reinsurers, all need to be proactive. To your question on the deductibles, there's always a knee-jerk reaction after an event. So what you saw there were 2025 numbers, right? The event happened in 2024. So what you would have seen in the 2024 numbers was pretty much a spike up reaction, and then coming down to more what we call commercially tradable levels, right? It's a typical cycle we have seen post any sort of big cat loss. We all know this, right? Or any sort of market event driven loss, because the insurers have to recover their cash flow from premiums. Okay. So longer term, I'm hoping not to see these sort of I think we all don't want we want the kind of stability, but unfortunately, unless things are done, it probably will happen again.
Okay, Yunus, you can close, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. It was very, very, very useful. I myself learned a lot. I hope audience also learned a lot. And I think it's time lunch or...
No.
It's not.
I think it's been a great day. Two excellent, really amazing sessions, both the AI and as well as the climate risks. The attendance, the engagement, the excitement looks like this is day one. But today is a Friday in this region, so we're going to break for 20 minutes. And after that, because of all the risk we have seen today, it means we need to build actuarial capacities. Especially in developing and Arab countries, and we have fantastic examples and initiatives launched by Milliman, the United Nations, UNDP, and we have great examples in Asia and in Pakistan. And we will learn about that after we take a 20-minute break, and then we will have an early lunch today for the Friday prayer. See you in 20 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum. Good day, everyone. Thank you, Ibrahim. Milliman Global Actuarial Initiative GAIN. Can we go to the slides, please? The first slide. Oh, sorry. Today, I'll briefly introduce GAIN, then we'll explore our experience in Pakistan through the panel discussion, and conclude with your questions. We've watched the video. Over the past few years, United Nations Development Program has increasingly recognized that sustainable development is inseparable from effective risk management. Insurance is not just a financial product, it is a pillar of resilience. But a strong insurance sector needs more than capital and regulation. It needs people, skilled, trusted, and locally rooted actuarial professionals. That is why UNDP, through its insurance and risk finance facility, partnered with Milliman to launch Global Actuarial Initiatives, or GAIN, to help countries build their own actuarial capacity and deepen their insurance markets from within. GAIN is built on a unique partnership between UNDP and Milliman and was launched in September 2022. UNDP brings deep local engagement, policy influence, and long-term relationships with governments and regulators. Milliman brings global actuarial capacity, expertise, technical leadership, and practical implementation experience. Together, This partnership bridges global knowledge and local realities, turning ideas into impact. Since its launch, GAIN has supported countries across regions through three interconnected pillars: demand, supply, and regulation, complemented by practical tools and ecosystem building initiatives. On the demand side, we work with insurers and industry leaders to strengthen the strategic role of actuaries. For example, in Ghana and other markets, we support executive training and the development of in-house actuarial functions. On the supply side, we focus on building local talent through the Actuarial Capacity Development Program. We deliver technical training, mentorship, university engagement, and exam support for students and early career analysts. Community practices. This is the program that reaches out to countries outside GAIN target countries as well, and I'll return to this later in our panel discussion. On the regulatory side, we work with supervisors and policymakers. This includes regulatory training, advisory support, and dialogue on strengthening the role of actuaries in regulatory frameworks. Beyond these pillars, GAIN provides practical tools such as microinsurance pricing toolkits and support ecosystem development, including the establishment of actuarial societies and technical reviews like mortality tables. This map shows where GAIN is active today, different markets, different challenges, but one shared objective: building strong local capacity through partnership. Today, GAIN is active in 16 countries, with 11 in-country working groups and roadmaps established. Our work has been driven by people, over 185 million volunteers and ambassadors, and more than 135 external volunteers have contributed their expertise. In practical terms, this has translated into more than 32,000 pro bono consulting hours, more than 15 capacity building programs, and over 4,000 training participants across region. We also supported peer reviews of public policy and helped 7 countries launch mentorship programs, strengthening both technical capacity and leadership pipelines. Here are a few impact stories, and you can learn more on our website. In Ghana, through the Non-Life Actuarial Development Program, or NACDEF, we supported 17 insurers over the 2 years with 20 more experts. In Nepal, advocacy led to regulatory change, and in Vietnam, we are supporting the creation of National Actuarial Society. And one of the most meaningful experience under GAIN has been our engagement in Pakistan. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our panelists, who brings together leadership from the profession and regional strategy on the ground in Pakistan. Sher Paracha is an associate of the Society of Actuaries, associate of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, a member of the American Academy of Actuaries, and a graduate of the University of Waterloo in Canada. He has over 14 years of experience working in the life insurance industry, spanning multiple countries including Pakistan, Canada, the Caribbean, and the US. He has worked on various aspects of the insurance business, including actual modeling, valuation, reporting, audit, and mergers and acquisition. He is currently serving as the Pakistan lead of the GAIN initiatives. Muhammad Usama Dangra is a fellow of the Society of Actuaries, a chartered enterprise risk analyst, and a graduate of the University of London. He has also completed the Society of Actuaries International Financial Reporting for Insurance certificate program. Usama brings over 10 years of actual consulting experience across Pakistan and the Gulf region, including the UAE, KSA, and Oman, working on valuation, pricing, risk assessment, and IFRS 17 implementation. Usama currently serves as the president of the Pakistan Society of Actuaries and has previously served on the PSOA board on the SOA Middle East, Africa, and Pakistan Committee, contributing actively to the development of the actual profession in the region. Zain Ibrahim is the regional director for the Society of Actuaries across the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia, with over 25 years of experience as a life actuary and insurance executive. Zain works closely with regulators, insurers, academic institutions, and actuarial associations to strengthen professional standards and actuarial capacity and professional with a focus on the long-term sustainability of life insurance and retirement systems, including in markets such as Pakistan. Zain is an associate of the Society of Actuaries and the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, holds an executive MBA from the University of Toronto's Rotman School of Management, and has served as a council member and secretary of the Pakistan Society of Actuaries, as well as vice chairman of the Insurance Association of Pakistan. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. And to set the scene for our discussion, it is important to understand where Pakistan stands today. Chair, may I invite you to briefly paint the picture of the actual landscape in Pakistan and highlight some of the key gain activities on the ground.
Okay. So before we get into the panel discussion, we wanted to give you an idea about the work GAIN is doing in Pakistan. I understand Pakistan may not be the most relevant to some of you here, but we have noticed similar themes come up, and it will hopefully give you an idea about what's, what we're doing, and kind of help with the questions, any questions you may have. So it all started with what we call an actuarial situation assessment, where a couple of GAIN ambassadors, including myself, visited the country and met several stakeholders to understand the actuarial landscape. These stakeholders included the Pakistan Society of Actuaries, or PSOA, Society of Actuaries, that is ZAN, the regulator, that is Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, or SECP, the Insurance Association of Pakistan, or IAP, Ministry of Finance, National Disaster Management Authority, National Disaster and Risk Management Fund, various insurance and reinsurance companies, actuarial consulting firms, and actuarial and mathematics departments at various educational institutions. The goal was to understand the landscape as it pertains to these 6 pillars of success depicted on the slide. In the middle, you have the educational pathway, that is supply of actuarial students, and employment opportunities for actuaries, that is demand. And to support these, you have public policy and regulation, thought leadership, professional development and networking, data quality and accessibility, and expertise in climate risk. The next slide shows our understanding of the actuarial landscape of Pakistan with the goal of identifying challenges or gaps that GAIN can potentially help address. Now, this is a very simplified view that tries to capture the key learnings and common themes based on interviews and discussions that took place over a relatively short period of time, so it is certainly not meant to be an exhaustive list. Overall, if we were to summarize in one line, our assessment determined that Pakistan has an impressive supply of actuarial students, many of whom end up qualifying as associates or fellows, but they provide limited support for Pakistan. Let us elaborate on that by diving into the 6 pillars of the actuarial situation assessment. In terms of the educational pathway, we understand that 2 educational institutions offer undergraduate degrees in actuarial science, while some other universities offer actuarial courses. Even though there is a decent number of students choosing the actuarial path, there was still a lack of awareness of the actuarial profession among students, especially outside the main cities. Some potential students are deterred by their limited understanding of what the actuarial profession is and what their career outlook can be. At the same time, another limitation is that while the actuarial faculty in Pakistan typically have strong mathematical backgrounds, many are currently not accredited with any professional actuarial bodies or have relevant industry experience that they can impart to the students. From an employment opportunities perspective, even though several actuarial students enter the workforce each year, most have limited to no prior actuarial experience. While some internship opportunities exist, they are limited and sometimes lack the structure that is necessary to make it most valuable for both employers and students. Generally, Pakistan's actuarial capacity is dominated by life insurance companies and consulting firms, with the latter servicing regional markets like UAE and KSA as well. Non-life insurance companies, on the other hand, do not typically employ actuaries and outsource most of the actuarial work. Management at non-life insurers need further awareness of the value of actuaries beyond typical statutory reporting. The demand for qualified actuaries is expected to increase in the near term, partly due to new insurance legislation which requires all insurers to have an internal actuarial function. In the current environment, the key challenge that Pakistan faces is the brain drain of qualified and experienced actuaries, where several actuaries leave for better opportunities abroad. In terms of public policy and regulation, SECP in Pakistan has the appropriate mandate and is in the best position to be the supervisory authority at the industry level for Pakistan, provided it has the appropriate data and resources. However, there is a perceived gap in regulatory framework relative to the more developed markets, and SECP has published a 5-year strategic plan outlining its key priorities and goals to achieve its vision of an inclusive, innovative, and sound insurance sector. Among these priorities is the successful implementation of IFRS 17 and risk-based capital. SECP has periodically maintained some in-house actuarial capacity to support these goals, but there is limited expertise on the more technical actuarial concepts. The IAP, SECP, PSOA, and SOA lead the thought leadership, professional development, and networking for the insurance industry and hold conferences for insurance professionals to come together and collaborate on initiatives that are essential for the growth of the sector. However, capacity limitations have made it difficult for actuarial professionals to effectively grow the profession and facilitate innovation within the Pakistani market. One feedback we received is that many early career actuaries are unaware of the diverse career paths available to them and that they're looking for more mentorship opportunities to help make them informed decisions. Everyone agreed that empowering PSOA is crucial to facilitate professional growth, innovation, and advocacy on behalf of the profession, as well as to support the interests of all stakeholders of the insurance and retirement industry. As far as data goes, insurers mostly have in-house data systems and utilize internal data for various needs. There's limited public data available. A current effort is underway to update the mortality table specific to Pakistan. There's also a recognition that similar efforts are needed to develop other industry assumptions. While there is a recognition of the risks climate poses and there are several great initiatives underway to tackle the impacts of climate change, there is a lack of expertise needed to analyze the models and the data to drive insights. Now, based on the assessment, we had a meeting with all the key stakeholders to develop a roadmap to enhance actuarial capacity and address some of the challenges that the actuarial profession and the insurance industry faces. As part of this roadmap, some interventions were designed that would help achieve the agreed upon vision in terms of supply, demand, and regulatory support. This next slide lists some of the key interventions that were developed to help uplift the actuarial profession and insurance industry in Pakistan. Note that while these interventions are broken down by supply, demand, and regulatory environment, some of them may be applicable to more than one category. On the supply side, it was decided that more needs to be done to increase awareness of the profession. This involves expanding outreach efforts at universities and high schools to promote the actuarial profession. With this in mind, the GAIN team has been working with SOA and PSOA to launch such awareness campaigns. Additionally, we wanted to introduce the Actuarial Faculty Development Program to support university professors. In 2025, we were able to get a couple of professors from Pakistan enrolled in the program, and we are expecting more interest in the next academic year. We also decided that Pakistan would greatly benefit from a structured mentorship program, and PSOA just launched this program recently with help from SOA and the Milliman GAIN team. On the demand side, it was decided that Pakistan would greatly benefit from a structured internship program, and we are in discussion with PSOA, IAP, and the local universities to see if we can put a framework together. Then to address some of the knowledge gaps, GAIN is facilitating technical training on various topics such as IFRS 17, sometimes virtually and sometimes on-site. In addition to the training facilitated on an ad hoc as needed basis, it was decided that a specific training for senior management of non-life insurers will be planned to help them understand the value of in-house actuarial capacity. We have already facilitated a few trainings in 2025 and more are being planned for 2026. On the regulatory side, work is ongoing to perform a regulatory gap analysis where key actuarial aspects of Pakistan's regulatory framework are being compared to established regional markets. As mentioned earlier, there's also an effort underway to update the mortality table for Pakistan led by PSOA. Discussions are also ongoing to draft a plan for various other interventions listed on the slide, and we are planning to launch more of these in the coming years. Hopefully that gives you a decent idea about the actuarial landscape in Pakistan and the work GAIN is doing there. With that, I will pass it back to Giovanni to start the panel discussion.
Thank you, Chair, for painting the actual landscape. So building on this landscape of Pakistan, Usama and Zain.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Giovanni, for the opportunity to talk about Pakistan. Pakistan offers a very unique story in terms of the actuarial landscape. You would very much find a lot of Pakistani actuaries within the Middle East working, and if you look at them and you look at a macro level, you would understand and you would realize that there would be a very robust ecosystem of producing actuaries in Pakistan. Well, the interesting story is that is really not the case. In my 20, 30 years of being in this profession and coming out from this very system, there are and there have been elements of a good robust system, but essentially all the parameters that you would assume that would be present in the market in terms of both on the supply side as well as the demand side are not as well tuned as they would be in a market that was producing as many actuaries as Pakistan is and has been. So what is working and how is it that we have so many Pakistani actuaries coming out from the system? Well, I would say there are two reasons we see that. The first one is, and I will explain these reasons, and perhaps those are the lessons for some of the other markets where you can see a similarity in terms of the landscape, and you want more actuaries being produced in those markets. Those are the two, I think, core elements that are lessons that could be learned. The first one is the fact that there was and has always been a strong employer support. A long time ago, where there were very few actuaries, one of the largest life companies in Pakistan came up with an actual training scheme, and they would hire students right from high school or A levels, and then they would train them, give them all kinds of support, right from exam fees to exam prep material to study leaves and so on. And then they would do it on an yearly basis, batch after batch. And a lot of actuaries right now, some of them are here in this room, are actually were produced by that particular training scheme. It's still going on, so that's one. That's just one company, and then there are other employers as well that have provided those kinds of support. The second thing that I think is again a lesson for other markets to learn are the success stories that we've been able to tell in the Pakistani population base. There have been actuaries who've come from very different diverse backgrounds and have been very successful in the industry, both in Pakistan and outside. In fact, out of 9 or 10 life companies, 4 CEOs are actuaries, and they've gone through essentially the same system. So success stories, and of course, the reason I say that it's very interesting, it's a unique story, is because if you look at both on the supply side as well as demand side, on the supply side, Sher did talk about 2 universities, and they have been running a program, an actual sciences program, for some time now. But by and large, there are lots of universities in Pakistan, but apart from these 2 universities which have been running this program for some time, you wouldn't find any other big, top-tier university having an actual sciences program. So there is no structured actual sciences ecosystem on the education side. And similarly, if you look at apart from the industry, there are no active, push from the industry to create more awareness, about the profession. Until about recently, where some of the consulting firms like SHMA and Badri, they've been doing great work. But without, in the absence of all these parameters, without a clear, conduit between supply and demand, you still have so many actuaries that are being produced. So there are very good lessons to be learned for the other markets, and I see similarities in terms of that. But I think at the end of the day, if we are able to connect the two, the demand and the supply side, and we are doing that in effort, and this program is an effort in that direction, we will see far more actuaries being produced by Pakistan over the next few years.
Okay, so for me, the biggest challenge for actuaries in Pakistan has been these external factors external to the actuarial profession, due to which a lot of mid to senior level actuaries leave the country. I think that's the biggest challenge we face. As Zed pointed out, despite limited support on the university side, we've still been producing a lot of actuaries, but most of them tend to move out of the country, and most of those who move out tend to lose touch with the local market. So I think that's been the biggest challenge, and it's all because of external factors external to the actuarial profession, and that's I think the biggest problem we face in Pakistan. Another factor that has contributed is the growth of Pakistan's own financial sector. It has been a bit challenged in the recent past. But that's been changing in the last 2 or 3 years. We've been changing, and we'll talk about that. Some of the things that the SECP has very recently done, I think that should support, and with IFRS 17 coming. But to me, it's the challenge we face in retaining mid to senior level people in the country. That's the biggest challenge. So I always say that if you see Pakistanis, right, no matter where they are in actuaries, there's tremendous growth in that segment. So there's tremendous growth in Pakistani actuaries. Unfortunately, the number of people working directly or indirectly with the Pakistani companies or in the country itself has remained more or less the same for many years now.
Right. So I would like to build on that. The talent and the retention is often mentioned. How do you think the market realistically can address this?
So it's as I said, the motivation for these are external factors that are external to the actuarial professions. The opportunities that are offered in other countries are very much exciting, or more exciting than. But I still feel some very recent developments will hopefully change that. And one of the two of the main of them are IFRS 17. So now in Pakistan, the companies, most of the companies have completed the first dry run. Now they're at a stage where they are optimizing, refining their results, and that's where they have realized that they need in-house actuaries. Although still a bigger role is being played by the consultants, but eventually they've started realizing that that there has to be an actuarial team that needs to drive this internally rather than being outsourced in the near future. I don't see that happening immediately in a few months, but I see that happening. The other important thing is that the SECP has mandated all insurance companies, including general insurance companies, now to have an internal actuarial function. There's a compliance timeline that's still about 18 months or so out, but eventually at the end of this compliance timeline, every company needs to have an internal associate actually. And they have also laid out the role that they want the internal actuary to play. So they have said they want a certain level of involvement in pricing, reserving, and all that. So with that, I think the local market for actuarial will grow.
Thank you, Sama. So if challenges define the present, education defines the future. Then, from regional perspective, my first question, how do you assess the current state of actual education and talent pipeline in Pakistan and also the wider region? And the next question is, what lessons can we learn from Pakistan market, and where do gaps still remain?
Okay, so I think Pakistan, as I mentioned, offers a unique story. When we talk about the talent pipeline, that I bifurcate it into two elements. One is the potential that is there, and the other one is the students and the talent that is already in the actual pathway. If you look at the potential, Pakistan is one of very few countries with 240 million population. A huge number, close to 60%, is under the age of 30. Deep focus by parents culturally and otherwise into STEM fields. Students, children are pushed into doing better and better with a focus of taking up any STEM career. So all the ingredients that you generally would want from any country in terms of building up actual talent are essentially there. The challenge is that there are, as we talked about, there are very few robust, structured actual sciences programs. There is inherent lack of awareness within the country about the actual profession, and especially within the young population. Nobody knows, very few people actually know about it, and so on. So those kinds of problems are, and these are similar to what I find in many other developing markets, whether it's North Africa or even in some Middle Eastern countries, where you have the potential, but that potential is not just being harnessed or encouraged or motivated into the profession because you don't have the tools. The second thing that I think is again very, very prevalent in almost all these markets with potential is the lack of awareness. There is no formal actuarial awareness campaigns. There are no formal education programs, introductory actuarial programs. There are no essentially success stories being told to students within colleges and universities. So those are again similar challenges we see. In terms of potential, of course, the potential is, as we talked about, is tremendous, and the demand is also very high. So it's interesting that you have got all the ingredients. You've got have all the essential elements that you need to build a great talent pipeline. On the demand side, you have tremendous demand. As Osama pointed out, you have insurance companies that are being mandated to set up actual departments. You have so many insurance companies needing more and more actuaries for IFRS 17 and many other stuff. So you have demand, you have tremendous supply. Somehow, somewhere, they are not being connected. One thing that I would add to what Osama said in terms of the issue of a lot of Pakistanis leaving the country. And again, this is something that I see across the region, many countries. And you know, when I talk to the local stakeholders, they say, oh, this is a problem, how do we address it? And I tell them that it's very simple. These people are leaving because of circumstances beyond your control, beyond anyone's control, right? The only thing that you could do is make sure that you have a robust, supply coming into the system. So if you have more and more coming into the system, even if some or most of them leave, there will be few that will leave for whatever reason, personal reasons, whatever, and you will have enough, critical mass in the country to make sure that the insurance and allied industries actually grow. So you have to focus on the potential. You have to focus on the supply side. You have to focus on the talent, and that is what is I think a similar theme that applies to a lot of markets within South Asia and Middle East and Africa.
Thanks, Zain. Still related to education, I would like to follow up on this. So before I help UNDP Milliman Gain, I help Canadian government to support building actuarial capacity in Indonesia. Here, there's a president and vice president of Society of Actuaries of Indonesia. We see how important to support the faculty development, the universities, and GAIN, with collaborating with ACTEC, we built the actual faculty development program. And this year's cohort, we have 13 countries as participants, and including Pakistan and countries beyond GAIN. And our next cohort will begin in July 2026, and enrollment opening in April. So for those interested, we warmly invite you to visit ACTEC booth or explore the program in our website. This brings us to an important point. Building actuarial capacity is not something any single institution can achieve alone. Usama, could you share some examples from Pakistan where different stakeholders have worked together to grow the actuarial profession?
We have many. I think let me start with the one we had with GAIN. So the PSOA and GAIN program launched the PSOA's first mentorship program. I don't think it was the first for the GAIN. You guys have done it differently for different countries, but it was the first for Pakistan. So Pakistan being a closely knit actuarial community, everyone had mentors, had seniors they would reach out to for help, for suggestions. We never really had a formal mentorship program, and GAIN helped us put that together. So I think that's one example where and the response we got was, at least to me, was beyond my expectation for both the mentors and the mentees. So that's one example. The other, I think, is the one that we are having with the SOA. So PSOA and SOA are working together to update the mortality table for Pakistan. SOA is assisting us with they're providing us the technical support and the direction. The PSOA has put together a team of volunteers. We're talking to the companies to have them participate in the study. So that's another example where I think the collaboration has made it possible. I don't think it would have been. I think it would have been difficult for PSOA, and it would have taken it more time for PSOA to do it on its own. But with the SOA support, we're able to do it in a quicker time. And I think we will be able to do a better job with the experience they have with the mortality tables. And I think I should also mention the recent IAP. So PSOA has this conference coming up that we're doing jointly with the Insurance Association of Pakistan. So PSOA has been doing conferences every second year or so. And one of the things that we had been trying to do is to reach out to the broader insurance segments. We wanted to bring the insurance industry in a room and showcase what the actuaries could contribute. And that's something we wanted to do at a broader scale. This time around, we got this opportunity. We worked with the IAP and we're doing this joint conference. And because of this collaboration, we hope to give the actuaries a better opportunity at showcasing what value they have been adding in the country and outside the country, and what value they can add, especially when the IFRS 17 and the internal governance rules have come up. I think it's an excellent time for us to be having that collaboration. So these are just the three very recent examples, and all of them have worked well or are going very well. And I think collaboration is the route. We can always get more value through collaborating when we have these synergies.
Thank you, Usama. So, based on my experience in Indonesia and also now with GAIN in like global markets, the success in each country is actually if we have a champion. And until now, what I witness is the champion usually and mostly is the society. So, for example, here there's a software of insurance industry, and that's why we have Usama here. The PSOA is the main champion in the success of the building the actual capacity in the countries. Let's look ahead. I'd like to invite three of you, Zen, Usama, and Sharon, to reflect on the future. What excites you most about the future of actual profession in Pakistan, and how can others get involved or support this market? Zen, I'd like to start with you.
So, I have tremendous excitement about the potential of the Pakistani actuarial talent pipeline. Not just because I'm from the system, but because of being from the system, I understand that even with all the challenges, lack of awareness, cost issues in terms of a lot of students not being able to afford exams, you still see so many young Pakistani boys and girls taking up exams, qualifying, and then contributing not just in the country but outside. So I think it's just a matter of us, the association, SOA, working closely with PSOA and other stakeholders like regulators. I feel regulators have also a great role to play, and we've seen that in front of our eyes in markets like KSA, where when the regulator is very focused in developing the actual profession, eventually the industry follows through, and you see a lot of results coming out of it. So we're working with three main stakeholders: regulators, the employers, and of course the universities. I see a tremendous potential. Hopefully in the next 4 or 5 years, we will probably see at least double the size of talent pool that we are now looking at.
Usama.
For me, it's developments on the general insurance side. And before I elaborate on that, I want to share what happened when the private life insurance sector grew in Pakistan a couple of years back. Actuaries led the way, and what happened was people like Zen, who started with Actuarial but then ended up expanding into technology, operations, distribution, and as Zen said, 3 of the largest life insurance companies in Pakistan are now led by credentialed actuaries, right? So that's what I hope and I wish to see with general insurance, now that we're getting that window to step into that industry and contribute. We have the supply. There's a lot more that the societies are trying to do on the education front. There's already a lot of actuaries that have good experience with general insurance, especially through their contributions in the Middle East market. So I think the expertise is there, and now we have the window with this governance rules that have come up. And I really hope that in the medium to long term, actuaries take those crucial positions like they've taken in the life insurance industry in Pakistan. So I can see a lot of areas already where the actuaries there. The industry needs people with analytical mind to come in and solve the problems. And I'm really hopeful that would happen for the general insurance industry in Pakistan.
Right, so we look forward to see actuaries in AI and climate, like the previous topics. Chair.
Yeah, so 1 year into GAIN's engagement in Pakistan, I think we've made some really good progress. As we've talked about it, there's been collaboration among all the key stakeholders that has really helped us, put some solid plans in place. And so heading into the second year, it's going to be more about kind of, taking this initial momentum and keep it going. And I think the most exciting thing in my experience has been the willingness of all the key stakeholders to come to the table and to not only help figure out a solution, but also to be a part of the solution. People are taking time out of their busy schedules. This is mostly volunteer work, and they're spending time to help the actual landscape and the insurance landscape of Pakistan. Everyone wants to go in that one direction, so everyone is kind of aligned there. So that's been probably the most exciting thing as we continue to do this work in Pakistan. Now, one thing I will say is that, like I mentioned, a lot of the work has been done by volunteers. And when I say volunteers, we've been actually engaging a lot of external volunteers as well. So, for example, we've done some training sessions, and we're planning a lot more training sessions in Pakistan. And for that, we try to find the right trainer, and we have recruited some external volunteers for that purpose as well. So, this is one thing I will say going into the second year and so on. We would, want to, we want to let you know, if there's anyone who's interested, please do reach out, because this is something that we do want to, talk to you about and see if there's something that you can help with. The next slide, actually, shows some ways you can follow the work GAIN is doing and how you can get in touch. You can join the mailing list through GAIN's website. You can follow GAIN's LinkedIn page, or you can reach out directly at gain@milliman.com.
Thank you, Chair. All right. Yes, thank you. Thank you for insightful perspective here. So now we have some time for the audience. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Adil Rabih, Adil Munir from Egypt, ex-chairman of Egyptian Supervisory Authority, 10 years before or more. I have an admiration with the Pakistani case and success story of raising the capacity. Actually, yes. But also I have two simple questions. First question, it is a quantitative curiosity about the output of the Pakistani experience. First, what is the average number of years to study and graduate or certified as an actuary? How number of graduated and certified actuary, and how many students now? This is my first question. I will say the second question also quickly. If the program begin the Milliman initiative in Egypt and Jordan, did you make a diagnostic survey or something concerning what the barriers to raise the capacity in these two countries, please? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'll invite Usam.
I'll take about Pakistan. So at the moment, the PSOA has more than 200 registered student members. So that means these are people who have at least passed one exam, but not completed their exams up to the associate level. So we have more than 200, around 220 to 25 registered members, student members. But we know there are a lot of people in university, last of the universities, or those who have joined the consulting firms and yet they're working towards their first exam. We don't have the compiled statistics, but just my guesstimate would be around 70, 80 people, considering the number of students in the fourth year of university programs that generally come into the profession. So at least a prudent estimate would be 70 to 80 people who have not got that first exam yet. So we can't call them student members, but we have this pipeline, a very prudent estimate of that. I can't say as to how many have graduated because we don't have the data of how many people have moved out. But this pipeline, these numbers have been there for a few years, so at least 5-6 years. This is the kind of pipeline that we've been looking, and you could imagine how many of them have moved into different places. And your first question, can you repeat the first part of your question? Average number of years, yes. So that varies significantly. I would say for for strong candidates, it still takes them around 5 to 6 years after they've completed their graduation in economics or in actuarial to become fully credentialed fellows. Could take more, but for strong candidates, generally takes 5 to 6 years. Most of them reach the associate level in around 3 to 4 years. They reach the associate level, but then another 2 or 3 years to get to the fellowship level.
Second question, Cheryl would like to chip in.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So my name is Vikas. I'm a senior consultant with Oliver Wyman UK. I'm a Pakistani actuary with roughly 18 years of experience in the industry. So thank you very much for explaining why there's an exodus of Pakistani talent, actuarial talent from Pakistan outside. But there's another question. The people who are going, people like me who've got a lot of experience, why we're not coming back? So why that same talent is not coming back, but when I compare or talk to my friends from India, that is a very viable option for them. The Indians have started to go back. So how far away Pakistan is from that maturity where talent like us will be coming back and then helping Pakistani industry develop? Because I think that part is missing.
So some of the reasons of not coming back are again external to the actuarial profession. So we can't really do about that. In terms of the maturity of the or the need of the industry to have people with that kind of background who've worked in more developed markets, I think the individual life industry is already at that level. We have huge portfolios. A lot of work that's being done is very is quite up to the mark, and I think it's a place where life actuaries from more developed experiences could come and contribute further. General insurance, as I said, it's a very recent thing that actuaries have gotten this window to work on general insurance. At the initial few years, I think it will be more about just getting involved into things, just getting the things started. So we're far from a state that you would expect from your UK experiences. But as I said, I hope things would develop because we have the portfolio sizes. We have a big population. We have huge property and marine risks that insurers cover here. Huge challenges in getting the right reinsurance because of the capital flow issues and a lot of problems that the actuaries can come in and solve. But I think it will take time for the general insurance companies to get used to actuaries. Actuaries have gotten this window, they need to utilize it, deliver value, and then eventually I feel it will get to that stage because there are a lot of problems that need to be solved and that actuaries can, and I hope eventually they'll be contributing to those.
Zen, do you want to add on?
Yeah, I think I'll agree to all of that and also add, just to give you an idea, there have been instances where people actually have moved back from places like Canada back into Pakistan. One of the CEOs of a life company actually moved back from Canada. We have also examples of people moving back from the Middle East and then one of the CEOs of a large life company actually moved back from the Middle East. So there are examples, and it's not because of dearth of opportunities. If as an actuary you would want to work in Pakistan, you'll get lots of opportunities. It's just that the perception and there are lots of other external factors that inhibit people from actually taking that.
I think time-wise we are.
Yes, right.
Unless you want to pose for a picture as a GAIN team.
Yes, maybe I will close.
Do you have anything announcement to make?
Yeah, just closing that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So today's discussion has shown that building actual capacity is not only about technical task, but strategic and collective effort. So we want to thank you for the finalists and thank you for the engagement. Thank you, Ibrahim and Manamani, for the setting up this. We look forward to continuing our journey together. Thank you.
Thanks to GAIN and thanks to all of our distinguished delegates, sponsors for your patience till the last minute of this 3-day long conference. Thank you so much for your time, for your generosity, your engagement and amazing responsiveness that. Thank you and see you next time.